Senegal's Constitutional Court declares President Macky Sall the winner of last month's election. As food shortages and soaring prices continue to worsen in Zimbabwe, citizens look for alternatives to a basic meal staple. And from birth to death, an archive of vanishing African rituals seeks a home. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. It's now official. Senegal's Constitutional Court has declared incumbent Macky Sall the winner of the February 24th presidential election. Sall thanked supporters Tuesday in Dakar after the court announced he had been re-elected to a second term with 58% of the vote.
Dear compatriots, the February 24th poll was a triumph for the Senegalese people. In my eyes, there are neither winners or losers. And now that the electoral campaign is definitely behind us, I consider there are no longer any voters or camps identified by colors and delineated along partisan lines. I see one camp, that of Senegal. What I see are the Senegalese who, having freely exercised their duty as citizens, are now feeding their passionate desire to remain united by a common destiny with a single nation. I see one people, motivated by one goal and one faith. I will therefore be president of all Senegalese.
Well, President Sall is calling for unity with his opponents who protested but did not challenge the initial results, showing Sall's victory. Some human rights groups criticized Sall's government for convicting two powerful opposition members on alleged corruption charges to keep them from running. His ambitious economic development plans have led to a 6% growth in the Senegalese economy, one of the highest growth rates in Africa. Senegal is generally regarded as one of West Africa's most peaceful and stable democracies. Now, for more on the Senegalese election, I'm joined by viewers Abdurrahman Dia. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Now, of course, the president, Macky Sall, after being announced, he's saying one united Senegal and is ready to serve the people. But we know that there was quite some strong voices that were going against him. What are some of the challenges that he faces in order to make the people feel like he's the leader for everybody?
Well, first of all, he has to prove to everybody that he's legitimate. He is legal. He is legally won the election, but will he be able to bring on board the 40+ % who did not vote for him? Already, Ousmane Sonko, one of the leading opposition leader now, already rejected his call. But he also asked former presidents, the living presidents, Abdoulaye Wade and Abdou Diouf, to be on board and helping him launch this dialogue. Abdou Diouf is on board. He's been supporting him. What will happen with Abdoulaye Wade, we don't know, but he doesn't seem very happy with the fact that his son wasn't allowed to run.
So he's one of the two that were locked out because of corruption charges, right?
Absolutely. Karim Wade and then the former mayor of Dakar, Khalifa Sall, who wasn't able to run. He's actually in jail for corruption and mishandling public funds. Yes.
Now, one of the things that Macky Sall touted was the big projects, infrastructural projects, the railway systems and other things that really make Senegal look like a country that is already close to the future. But then many people say there's grinding poverty and that there are very few alternatives for the common people. How does he resolve that issue?
It is the big question. Usually when you come to Dakar, what you will see is, yes, the new airport, the roads, you know, a new train, express train. Yes, that is very good, but what happened to the rural areas? It is true that he did invest quite an amount of money in rural areas, but there is much to be done, even in urban areas. He was able to win Dakar and some urban areas, which is very rare for a running party in power. but still poverty is very real, and it is even a security challenge, I would say, because many studies are showing that in some part of the neighborhoods outside of Dakar, people are starting to listen to what extremists have to say, and that is very challenging. And we have seen many Senegalese, many young people trying to go to Libya and trying to reach Europe. So that is the big challenge. How do we spread that wealth?
Exactly. And very quickly, at least one has to recognize that Senegal has continued, even through this election, to remain stable throughout the time of the election and to have an kind of a process that ends up well as compared to other neighboring countries.
Right. Senegal has a history of very tense campaigns, but it always ends well, for the most part, except maybe in 1988, where the government had to install the state of emergency. But globally, it does end well, and people go back to, being opposition leader or trying to discuss. So what will happen for the next 5 years? Will he be able to restore the dialogue, which is what Senghor was calling the Senegal is a country of dialogue? Will he be able to do that? Remains to be seen.
Well, we hope for the best. Thank you very much for joining us, Abdurrahman, today. That's Abdurrahman Dia of VOS French. Now, all the way to the south of the continent, Zimbabwe officials say the extension of U.S. sanctions on its government is regrettable, but Harare will keep talking to Washington and the European Union to remove the measures it says have stifled its economy. Sanctions were imposed under the rule of Robert Mugabe, who brought the country to near ruin during his 37-year tenure. West accused him of rigging elections, rights abuses, and oppressing opponents before he was ousted after a coup in 2017. Zimbabwe says the sanctions law bars U.S. officials from voting for Zimbabwe to access funds from foreign lenders like the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, hobbling its economy, which is gripped by a severe shortage of dollars. With high inflation and a shortage of cash in circulation eroding ordinary citizens' spending power, the fragile state of the economy is at the heart of the country's political trouble. Foreign Ministry Secretary James Mansour told a committee of Parliament that the sanctions were unwarranted. Now, the high cost of bread in Zimbabwe is forcing citizens to look for alternatives to this basic commodity as food shortages and soaring prices continue to worsen. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
Bread has joined the list of goods in short supply, causing its price to spiral beyond the reach of many Zimbabweans. Now many are becoming accustomed to having tea, a favorite morning beverage, without the bread. Gibson Nema now sells bread substitutes.
Wakutongoona kuti zvinhu zvese zviri ndosakaona angu akatsvukira ka tatsvukirisa kuti zvifanano nekachingwa ndirege kufunga chinhu tatingade kuti chiitika apapo aiwa deno atidzorero flour pasi chingwawo chacho chodzika zvikadaro zvinoenderano nemararamiro atiri kuita.
While business is booming for vendors like Nema, these are very tough times for those who sell bread.
There used to be a lot of breads, but these days people are no longer buying like what they used to do before.
Why?
Because the prices are getting high each time. We used to sell this bread for about $1. Now it's costing about $2.50. So you can just see how it's like. People cannot afford it.
Minister of Industries Mangaliso Ndlovu recently said he found a company that could make bread using local ingredients to help ease the shortage and control price. But farmers say they do not have the infrastructure to produce wheat in a cost-effective way. They are calling on President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government to help.
Irrigation infrastructure and obviously the impact of land reform has had its impact on wheat production. It got down to a very low level at one point. It's come up, but for it to grow on a sustainable basis, the bottom line is farmers need a decent price and millers need to cover their costs and contractors need to be able to get the supplies that they need at affordable prices.
As government and industry officials search for a solution, Zimbabweans like Gibson Nema keep thinking of alternatives for something as basic as their daily bread. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Well, Cameroon could plunge further into violence if the government does not stop hate speech by politicians and heavy-handed tactics by security forces. That's according to United Nations Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet. Long-running tensions have erupted into conflict with separatists in the southwest and Islamists in the northwest, prompting crackdowns by security forces and leaving 1.3 million people in need of aid, according to the UN. Bachelet said Wednesday the neighboring Sahel region had taken an innovative approach to protecting civilians during counter-terrorism operations, and legal advisors and UN rights experts were working with armed forces in Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. Bachelet is urging Cameroon to adopt a similar approach.
Last month, the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights noted the heavy-handed approach of the security forces to the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, including destruction of medical facilities, schools, essential infrastructure, and entire villages. I note the statement at this council by the Minister of External Relations indicated that investigation of alleged violation by security forces are underway and sanctions will be applied.
Cameroon's Foreign Minister Lejeune Mbela last week told the council his government was increasing rights trainings for civil servants and the security forces. Accusations of violations by security personnel are being investigated diligently, and Mbela says any guilty parties will be punished. The United Nations says Burkina Faso is facing an unprecedented displacement triggered by armed groups and intercommunal clashes and exacerbated by long-term food security. The UN Humanitarian Coordination Office says more than 70,000 people have fled their homes in the last 2 months. Reports indicate that armed groups have also burned down schools and killed innocent civilians. The army has stepped up its operations in response to worsening security across northern Burkina Faso last year. But rights activists have accused it of carrying out extrajudicial killings and arbitrary arrests that could worsen instability. The Humanitarian Office spokesperson, Jens Lerke, described a rise in intercommunal clashes since the second half of last year.
So it is intercommunal clashes between communities, and laid over that is this emergence of armed groups, which are fighting each other, fighting government forces and attacking civilians. That has escalated in the second half of last year, and really it took off at the beginning of this year with some very violent clashes in the beginning of January.
Well, Burkina Faso borders the Sahel region countries of Niger and Mali to the north, where militant groups, some linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, have carried out attacks for years. In addition to an Islamic insurrection in the north, in 2018, Burkina Faso began suffering attacks by unknown militants in the east and attacks in the capital. To East Africa now, Kenya's transport minister says striking workers at the country's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi have no basis for complaints. Flights were grounded Tuesday due to the work stoppage over a labor dispute. In a tweet, Kenya Airways had advised some customers not to come to the airport. The strike follows a dispute over contracts and job security between the Kenya Aviation Workers Union and Kenya Airways. Picketing staff protested outside the airport before being dispersed by the riot police. Hundreds of passengers were waiting outside the international and domestic terminals for flights to resume as replacement staffers screened passengers and luggage. One striking worker said they are unhappy about Kenya Airways' hopes to run the airport, a plan seen as vital for the nation's national flag carrier survival. Now, Transport Secretary James Macharia criticized the strike.
We do not interfere with a security installation, especially when you have no basis for complaints. When you have a job, nobody has failed to pay your salary. Nobody has given you a threat that your job will be at risk. and yet you go on a strike. You have given assurances that the numbers are going up in terms of employment, and you still go on strike. That is called malice. It is called sabotage. It is called economic sabotage. It is something which cannot be tolerated. It is criminal activity. And that's why you found the security agencies are here. They managed to chase away everybody who was bringing trouble.
Well, Kenya Airways CEO told reporters that 24 flights were delayed and 2 had to be diverted to other Kenyan airports. 25 airlines operate out of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, including Turkish Airlines, Emirates, and South African Airways. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Still ahead on Africa 54, documenting rapidly vanishing rituals across the continent. But first, a look at Wednesday's headlines.
UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet warns that Cameroon may fall further into violence if the government doesn't stop hate speech by politicians and heavy-handed security tactics. In Burkina Faso, UN aid officials say the country faces unprecedented displacement due to violence and food insecurity, with 70,000 fleeing their homes in the last 2 months. In Algeria, Army Chief of Staff General Ahmed Gaid Salah said that protesters against President Abdelaziz Bouteflika are parties who wish to bring Algeria back to the years of violence in his first comments since protests began last month. In Kenya, hundreds of passengers were stranded on Wednesday because of a strike at Nairobi's international airport by the Kenyan Aviation Workers Union.
The Democratic majority in the U.S. House of Representatives is stepping up pressure on President Donald Trump with probes into his finances and possible campaign ties to Russia. But 1 week after Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, testified before lawmakers about possible crimes by the president, Speaker Nancy Pelosi is urging caution against talk of impeachment. VOA's Catherine Gibson reports on the Democrats' strategic approach.
So help you God.
Dramatic testimony last week from President Trump's former lawyer.
He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
Followed up this week by a barrage of document requests from House Democrats seeking more information from Trump's inner circle.
Thank you, and please be seated.
Part of the House Judiciary's wide-ranging oversight of Trump and his White House, but not a bid to impeach the president, insist top Democrats.
Impeachment is a divisive issue in our country, and let us see what the facts are, what the law is, and what the behavior is of the president.
Pelosi urging caution until special counsel Robert Mueller releases his report on the Trump campaign's alleged collusion with Russia.
Democrats have screamed at the top of their lungs that the integrity of the Mueller investigation has to be protected from presidential interference or other types of Republican interference. I think for Democrats then to move forward with impeachment proceedings without waiting for the Mueller report would seem quite hypocritical.
Well, Cohen's testimony gave lawmakers a broader picture of Trump's possible violations.
There is a growing body of evidence that he will stand for nothing in terms of making sure that his hide is protected. I mean, he will obstruct justice, he will violate the law.
Democrats also sense that in today's highly charged political environment, the standards for impeachment will be high.
There was a time when we would have thought it impeachable for the president to be directing crimes from the Oval Office and to be paying illegal hush money and violating campaign finance laws. It requires us to ask the question of whether these are crimes against the republic itself.
The Democrats' document requests aiming to answer that question. But the White House says the probe signals that the Democrats' claim of Trump campaign collusion with Russia is crumbling. Republicans are standing by the president.
From what I've seen and what we've investigated, it doesn't give me any pause whatsoever about this president.
With presidential primaries looming next year, the risks for Democrats are considerable.
If Democrats seem too political, there is a risk that it will both alienate prospective voters in the middle and also give President Trump ammunition to use against Democrats.
But if members of the Trump family and other Trump associates fail to comply with the document's requests, House Democrats have been clear. The next step will be subpoenas.
On oversight of the Trump administration.
Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Capitol Hill.
But Michael Cohen, the former longtime personal attorney for President Trump, returns to Capitol Hill Wednesday to testify before the House Intelligence Committee, one of several in the Democratic-led House are launching fresh investigations into the Trump administration. Now, Cohen made 3 appearances before Congress last week, speaking to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees in closed sessions and publicly testifying before the House Oversight Committee. He told the Oversight Committee that Trump is a conman who directed him to cover up affairs with 2 women who lied about his business efforts in Russia. The heads of the House Intelligence, Foreign Affairs, and Oversight Committees made a joint request to the White House on Tuesday for records concerning any communications Trump had with Russian President Vladimir Putin, expressing concern about allegations Trump worked to conceal details of those interactions. Separately, the House Judiciary Committee is requesting documents from 81 individuals as part of what Chairman Gerald Nadler called an investigation into the alleged corruption, obstruction, and other abuses of power by the president. The information gathered by the Judiciary Committee, along with that in the yet-to-be-released report by Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation of Trump campaign links to Russia and obstruction allegations, could form the basis of impeachment proceedings against Trump. Home to Apple, Facebook, and Google, Silicon Valley in California is an American economic powerhouse producing technology companies with global influence. But behind these influential American brands, scores of foreign women who play a critical role in the Valley's tech workforce. Ahead of International Women's Day, Friday, March 8th, Dana Michelle reports on the women trying to build the next generation of influential tech companies.
Pushpa et al. May not fit the stereotype of the typical Silicon Valley CEO. She's female, foreign-born, and a mother. Nevertheless, she's one of the many foreign-born women with thriving technology careers in Silicon Valley, where companies are increasingly relying on workers like her.
Silicon Valley is known for the entire world about building great products that millions of people, hundreds of millions of people use it.
Silicon Valley, the global center for high-tech innovation, could be renamed Immigrant Valley. It is fueled by foreign-born workers, many of whom are from humble roots. And having worked so hard to get here, many have ambitions beyond their day jobs.
Do you want to take this risk and move to a startup? Hey, you know what? I came here all the way. Let's risk it. That drives everything.
In computer science jobs, people born outside the United States make up almost 70% of those in their prime working years. That's especially true for women. Nearly 80% of women in computer and math fields are foreign-born. Most are from India and China.
Countries like India and China, where women's roles are often very subservient. Silicon Valley offers a pathway out. Engineering, in particular, is a pathway towards economic sustainability.
Although the tech industry is still mostly male, more and more foreign-born women are finding success here and are rapidly promoted. Lingling Shi, born in China, saw studying technology as her ticket to success in the U.S.
Computer science, for most of us, feel like it's easier to apply green cards. It's not my main interest, I'll be honest.
Family life is one way that foreign-born women in tech are different than their American counterparts. Despite their demanding careers, they are almost twice as likely to be married, and also much more likely to have children.
I think to Chinese, family is still most important. They will never accept, no matter how successful, my parents will not be happy, oh, you're a VP of engineering now, but you don't have a kid.
Women from India and China are under a set of cultural expectations and norms that they will have a family right away, and they will excel in their careers. So these women are really kind of super women in terms of the tasks that they take on.
But that parental pressure also comes with perks.
Typically for Asian family, like parents will be here when the time you're about to deliver the baby, then they will be here for like a half year, 1 year.
Support like that can make a real difference.
They will get to those leadership roles a lot more quickly than their American-born peers who don't have the support that they need.
They may not be household names or on the covers of business magazines yet, but these immigrants are likely to be the talent fueling the next wave of tech innovation. Dina Mitchell for VOA News, San Jose, California.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Carol Beckwith and Angela Fisher have traversed 44 of Africa's 54 countries over 4 decades, documenting rituals used to mark milestones such as birth, death, and courtship, the graduation of girl to woman, or the moment a warrior becomes a respected elder. Now, the archive comprising more than 1 million images, hundreds of artifacts and field diaries, and thousands of hours of videos looking for a home. They want the collection to go to a university in Africa or some other venue that will guarantee access to African artists, historians, and researchers. Conflict, climate change, and the spread of technology are erasing or transforming many such customs. Well, next up, an aged care provider in Aldeida is placing its staff in the shoes of their clients by wearing an empathy suit. Hundreds of trainee carers will carry out ordinary tasks in the suits in an effort to improve the delivery of aged care. The suits are fitted with straps, weights, and braces. They are adjustable to simulate the experience of older patients and those with a disability. The empathy suits were first developed a decade ago as a training tool for students at the University of Sydney's Broken Hill Department of Rural Health. The goal is for better empathy to translate into improved health care. Well, and finally, there is a new trend in the garment industry. Men who knit are becoming more comfortable stitching in public. At the String Thing studio in Brooklyn, New York, Thursday nights are men's nights. A small but growing circle of men joined together to knit, chat, and drink. Louis Bory helped form the group in January after becoming an internet sensation in late 2017 when a photo of him knitting on the New York City subway went viral. In addition to Bory's popular Brooklyn Boy Knits business, he teaches public school children to knit, works with their Heart Not Hate campaign against bullying, and encourages others to follow their dreams. And that's what is trending today, and that's our show. Have a good night.